Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Vani Pacharine Nirvise Sasunyavadi Vaskatra Visakarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This microphone's not on. Oh, Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai. Sorry, we're a little late again today. I haven't gone over your homework from last week. I will, but tomorrow. However, I want to go right into the subject, the new subject for today. This is related to the coronavirus outbreak. I've discussed this about four or five times, but now we're going to go a little further. That is, there are many speculations about the coronavirus. Like, for example, how did it start? Did it start as an experiment in the biological warfare laboratory in Wuhan, where the Chinese scientists are trying to make different types of biological warfare substances, like viruses, for example. Biological warfare means you don't fight with bombs and bullets and rockets. You fight with viruses and bacterias, things that you can't see, but which have a specific existence and can contaminate a person, especially if a person has a low immune system or an impaired immune system. It can make you sick and can make you die. So there are all kinds of bacterias and all kinds of viruses and all kinds of things that you don't see with the raw eye. You can see them under a microscope. And some of those things are beneficial and some of those things are very, very poisonous. Like, for example, anthrax. Anthrax is in soil. So if you are running your hands through soil or sand or something like that, you could get infected with anthrax and you would die right away or very soon. In the same way, there are all kinds of bacteria in soil and in the air, and there's also viruses. So your first homework is to understand the difference between what is called a bacteria and what is called a virus. And see if there is a difference, and if there is, explain what the difference is. Okay, now, the corona outbreak is considered to be a virus, a very deadly virus. So, how did it start? Did it start in a biological warfare laboratory in Wuhan, or did it start in the wet market in Wuhan? What is a wet market? It's a place where live animals are on display, and people come and they see fish and crabs, and they see bats, and they see dogs, and they see sheep, and they might see a cow, and they see all kinds of fish, and they see a pangolin, and they see snakes, and they can choose which one of those. Some of them are alive, some of them are dead, and chickens also. All kinds of living entities are there, and it's a wet market because they'll kill the animal right in front of your eyes, and then prepare it for you, and then you can take it home and cook it and eat it. Or some of them are dead also already, like the bats, and you choose one that you want, and you take it home, you cook it, and you eat it. And they'll prepare it for you. If they have to cut off the skin, or cut off a head, or cut off a leg, or whatever. They prepare it any way you want. And there's blood all over the place, and water, and smells, and of course, bacteria and viruses. And sometimes the virus that is only found amongst animals can jump over to human beings, and then you have a what's called a pandemic. As soon as it jumps from the animal to the living being, because it's so unclean in that market. And that's not the only market in Wuhan. They have markets like that in many other places in China, and they have markets like that in Thailand, and they have markets like the wet markets also in the Philippines. All throughout the Far East, there are these wet markets. Wet meaning they're killing the animal right in front of you, and the blood is spurting all over the place, and there's very unclean. They don't keep any hygienic. They don't have any real hygienic practices. Okay, so what caused this pandemic, this viral? So there are a lot of guesses about it. So today we're going to describe the 4 nutshell verses of the Srimad Bhagvatam. When it says nutshell, it means the 4 verses on which the whole Bhagavatam is expanded from. And it's like a seed. The seed is very small. But when you plant it, then it grows. And sometimes it can grow into a very big tree, or a very big plant. So everything in nature goes from the subtle to the gross. And a virus is very subtle. You can't even see it. You need a microscope to see it. But it can have a cataclysmic worldwide effect by being transferred from one person to another, by physical contact, by sneezing. In MIT they did an experiment, and they saw that if a person sneezes, the extent of the sneeze can be up to 27 feet, and all these minute particles of the sneeze, they can remain airborne for up to 3 hours. So 27 feet is pretty long distance, and 3 hours is a long time. So if you walk into a place that where you had 1 or 2 coronavirus victims sneezing, even if you walk in that place 2 or 3 hours after the person sneezed, you walk in there, and the particles of that sneeze are still in the air in that building where the sneeze took place, and you can breathe it in, and you could get the coronavirus. And other things are, other types of viruses and bacteria are transmitted by bodily contact. And some of them are airborne, and some are, like a person blows their nose in their hand and then wipes their hand on a table in the school, or on the railing in a school, or a building, so if you touch that railing or touch that table where the person where they touched their snot, you could get the disease, because it's going to the bacteria or the virus is going to stay alive for a certain amount of time on the table or on the railing. They don't die right away. Some of them do, and some of them don't. It depends on the virus or the bacteria. Okay, so trying to figure out cause and effect. We know what the effect is, the disease, but find out the cause. There's a lot of speculation. But today we're going to learn a lot from the 4 nutshell verses, which are in the Srimad Bhagvatam, 2nd canto, verses 33 to 36. 2nd canto, verses 33. Yeah, wait a minute. That's a question in the chapter. Let me see here. Chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 33 to 36. Okay. So, first of all, let's look at text 32 first. Canto 2, chapter 9, text 32. The text 32 is not one of the 4 nutshell verses, but it's an introduction to it. And in this verse, Krishna says, all of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. So he's saying, all of me, meaning Krishna's talking about himself, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. So the first question here is, Krishna is absolute. So that means his body, his color, his qualities and activities, they're also absolute. Now that's not true for us. Our body is not absolute. Our qualities, like someone can be tall or short, or someone can be pretty or ugly, someone can smell good or smell bad. Our qualities are not absolute. Absolute means they don't change in time. They may get better, but they don't change. Like, so because it's absolute, it's not that Krishna's color becomes changes and loses its color. No, his color will always be the same, and if anything, it enhances rather than loses anything. So Krishna and his qualities are non-different and all absolute. Whereas for us, we may, at a certain age, we may have been a certain size, and then later on we got bigger, and then as we got older we got smaller, and then we died, and the body disappears. So all our qualities are not primary qualities, they're secondary qualities. They are subject to change, and they can also be annihilated, and also they're temporary. Whereas Krishna is himself absolute, so everything that emanates from him, his qualities, his activities, everything is also absolute. So Prabhupada says in the purport to this verse, now this is not the first verse of the Chatra Sloki, or the 4 nutshell verses, but it's the verse right before them. It says, the secret of success in understanding the intricacies of knowledge of the Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. In other words, in order to understand Krishna, you have to get his mercy. The secret of success is getting the mercy of Krishna. How do you get the mercy of Krishna? You don't get it by sitting at home watching television or talking on the cell phone. You get it by coming to the temple and having darshan of the Lord and offering service to the Lord. That's how you get his mercy. Anyone can get his mercy, regardless of whether they're educated or not educated, or whether they come from a high family or low family, etc. But you have to have the desire for it. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret of his position to the pet sons. The father discloses the confidence. The father discloses the confidence unto the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in the social order can be known by his mercy only. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. The Lord is unlimited. No one can know him completely. But one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. Here we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him, so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his or the Lord's mercy only. So everything depends on the mercy of Krishna for understanding. In the Vedas, also it is said that a person cannot know the absolute truth, personality of God, simply by dint of mundane education or intellectual gymnastics. So the education you get in schools today is all mundane, and you're not going to be able to understand Krishna by it. One can know the supreme truth if one has unflinching faith in the bona fide spiritual master as well as in the Lord. Such a faithful person, even though illiterate in the mundane sense, can know the Lord automatically by the mercy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also it is said that the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone, and he keeps himself concealed from the faithless by his yogamaya potency. So the faithless are the atheists and the impersonalists who claim that God does not exist as a unique person. And then they have so many speculations from there is no God to everybody is God. So Krishna has to reveal himself to us, and that he does in proportion to our surrender to him. But he's not obliged to do anything. But if you take an interest in hearing about him regularly, then he takes an interest in you. To the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his form, quality, and pastimes. The Lord is not formless, as wrongly conceived by the impersonalists. But his form is not like one that we have experienced. The Lord discloses his form even to the extent of measurement to his pure devotees, and that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest philosopher of Srimad Bhagvatam. The Lord discloses the transcendental nature of his existence. The mundane wranglers make mundane conceptions of the form of the Lord. It is said in the revealed scriptures that the Lord has no mundane form. Therefore, persons with a poor fund of knowledge conclude that he must be formless. He has no mundane form like us. His form is transcendental. But he's not formless. The Mayavadis say, he has no form, so therefore he's formless. No, he has no form like us, but his form is transcendental. Therefore he does have a form. They cannot distinguish, this is the people with poor fund of knowledge, they cannot distinguish between a mundane form and a spiritual form. According to them, without a mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of Krishna. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. This is a very important point. This is like a mathematical principle. Just because you negate something mundane doesn't mean that you found something that's transcendental. In the Brahma Samhita it is said that the Lord has a transcendental form and that he can utilize any one of his senses for any purpose. For example, the sun cannot eat with his eyes, and he can see with his flag. For example, he or a person can eat with his eyes, and he can see with his with his leg. It says that Krishna can utilize any one of his senses for any purpose. For example, he can eat with his eyes, and he can see with his leg. In the mundane conception of form, one cannot eat with one's eyes or see with his leg. That is the difference between the mundane body and the spiritual body of Satchitananda. A spiritual body is not formless. It is a different type of body of which we cannot conceive with our present mundane senses. Formless, therefore, means devoid of mundane form, or possessing a spiritual body, of which the non-devotee can have no conception by the speculative method. So, whenever it says that God is formless, it means he doesn't have a form like us. He has a form, but it's transcendental. It's not mundane. It's not subject to the material world or the modes of material nature. So then it says, the Lord discloses to the devotee his unlimited varieties of transcendental bodies, all identical with one another, with different kinds of bodily features. Some of the transcendental bodies of the Lord are blackish, and some of them are whitish, some of them are reddish, and some of them are yellowish. Some of those are four-handed, and some of them are two-handed. Some of them are like the fish, and some are like the lion. All these different transcendental bodies of the Lord, without any differential category, are disclosed to the devotees of the Lord by his mercy. Are disclosed to the devotees of the Lord by the mercy of the Lord, and thus the impersonalists' false arguments claiming the formlessness of the Supreme Truth do not appeal to a devotee of the Lord, even though such a devotee may not be very advanced in devotional service. Okay, so anyway, Prabhupada is explaining a lot of things as a preliminary to the four nutshells verses, the four verses on which the whole Bhagavatam is based and expanded. Vyasadeva gave the four nutshell verses to his son, Sukadeva Goswami, and then Sukadeva Goswami expanded it into 18 volumes as we know it today. Aham eva sam eva agre. So this is text 33, the first of the four verses. And it says, Brahma, now Krishna is speaking to Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. That doesn't mean there was nothing. It's there was nothing but myself. There was only Krishna. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. So Krishna is eternal, before the creation, during the creation, and after the creation is over. So, we're going to go now to the second verse. I mean, your homework is going to be to read the purport, and the purport is very long to the first verse, explaining how Krishna is eternal. The second verse is what interests me today to understand how to deal with the news. Now, the news cycle now is all about the coronavirus. So the second verse, text 34, second canto, chapter 9, text 34. Rite ritam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyad atmano mayam yata baso yata tama. Second verse says, O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So this is an extremely important verse. If you want to be Krishna conscious the rest of your life, you have to know what this verse says. Otherwise, so many situations will come and you'll forget about Krishna and get caught up in that situation. And just like people, every day they're hearing about coronavirus, what the president said, what's happening in England, what's happening in Russia, what's happening in China with the coronavirus. Everything's based on the coronavirus. Now, is it something true? Is it something false? Is it what it looks like, or is it something else? So that's the question. So this verse says, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, meaning Krishna, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So, anything that doesn't have a connection to Krishna should be considered worthless. However, if you're an expert devotee, you can take anything and find a way to use it in Krishna's service. Then it would not be worthless. But as long as it's not the object that you discover is not used in Krishna's service, it's worthless. It doesn't have any real value. So, therefore, if we take this principle of the second canto, 9th chapter, text 34, everything you're hearing in the news about the coronavirus is more or less without any value. Most of it is all speculation. You have this doctor, that doctor, this projection, that projection, this prediction, that prediction. It's all speculation. They were saying a week ago that, there would be at least 100 to 200,000 deaths by today. Never happened. They were saying this thing can go on for, 18 months. That's not true. And they were saying this thing and that thing. They're all speculation. Why? First of all, it has no connection to Krishna. Secondly, they're basing it on different models. So one person has one model, another person has another model, and they're making predictions based on those models. Well, someone who came the first day to near the Seattle Center to get a checkup, they were under the belief that this coronavirus is highly contagious and that anyone can die from it, and that they had some sniffly nose or a cough and they think that they might have it. So there are many different flus and viruses. Some are very deadly, some are not so deadly at all, but many of them have the same symptoms, headache, muscle pain, runny nose, fever, cough, etc. So everything that shines is not gold, and every cough doesn't mean a person has coronavirus. So you need to have a test. But lo and behold, China sent some coronavirus tests to the United States, and they tested the tests, and they found that some of the tests have coronavirus in them. So if you take that test to find out if you have coronavirus, you will have coronavirus because the test is contaminated with the coronavirus. So here we are in a world of confusion, absolute confusion and chaos and fear and trepidation and doubt and hysteria, basically. So, why? Anything, as this verse says, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So, have you ever seen a reflection in darkness? Well, it doesn't look very light, that's for sure. Something that's reflected in the dark, you don't get a clear picture of what it is. Okay, so none of the news cycles, none of the commentators, none of the doctors, not the president, no one is explaining the coronavirus in terms of Krishna, or by making reference to Krishna. They're dealing with it as a separate thing from God. Now, some preachers and Christian preachers are saying, "Oh, this is God's way of telling us that we're sinners." Okay, well, they're giving some connection of the coronavirus to God, or the earthquake to God, or the flood to God, or the hurricane to God, right? But most people are seeing it separately. God has nothing to do with this. It's just about, finding a vaccine or getting a ventilator to help you breathe, or etc. So, Prabhupada says, misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, this is in the purport to 2.934. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope as it exists in the front of the illusion person is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called a reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. This is a very philosophical point. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of Maya energy, Krishna says, is called Maya. So this is the whole point of modern education. It's to factor out Krishna in everything. It's to say, this is science. Science has nothing to do with religion. Science has nothing to do with God. Science is science. It's hard facts, but actually it's all speculation. That's why all the preliminary projections about coronavirus were wrong. That's why they're still not sure how the coronavirus came about. They have different guesses. And they're not sure how long it's going to last. And they're not sure how many people are going to die. And they're not sure how to stop it, whether they're going to find a vaccine or not quickly to stop it, and this thing and that thing. And they're not sure if the vaccine is the real solution. The real solution is to have a strong immune system by which you don't get it, or if you get it, you only have very light symptoms and it goes away like other flus. Because it is a flu. It is a viral infection. There are all kinds of viral infections, all kinds of bacterial infections. People get them all the time and they don't die, but some people do die. They're usually people who have very weak immune systems. How do you have a weak immune system? You're eating junk food. You're eating unclean things. I mean, people get sick for 4 reasons. One, three main reasons. One, overindulgence, overeating, doing too much of something that becomes, just a little bit of that something, okay, you don't get sick right away. Too much of something, you get sick. Not enough of something, you can also get sick. So, if you eat too much food, you'll get sick. If you eat just enough, you stay healthy. If you eat too little, you get sick. And so, overeating, undereating, overindulgence, underindulgence, you get sick. Second point, eating unclean things, like meat. That's why they say you have to cook the meat. Don't eat it raw. If you eat raw meat, you can get sick. Because there's all kinds of pathogens and diseases. It's basically a dead body. Meat is a dead body. So obviously, it depends on, first of all, the health of the animal before it died. Usually, they hope to kill healthy animals. But there's no such thing as a healthy animal. All animals, all living beings, they have something wrong with them in different degrees. So the second thing is uncleanliness. And the third thing is anxiety. So very anxious people, they get sick. People who are unclean, they get sick, and people who engage in over or under indulgence, they also get sick. So you have three major causes of sickness. Now, Wuhan wet market is a very dirty place, and if you eat things that come from that market, you have a good chance of getting sick, unless you have a strong immune system. And then people in America, there's no difference between the Wuhan market and a supermarket that's selling meat. Maybe the supermarket is a little cleaner than the Wuhan market, but the meat itself is the same thing. You know, it's a dead body, whether in Wuhan or in the United States. Now, everybody who eats meat in the United States does not necessarily get sick right away. Some people do, but most people don't. Because you cook the meat, you're supposed to cook the meat, you're not supposed to eat it raw. Although some people eat raw meat, and they have a chance of getting sick much faster than other people, or they eat meat that hasn't been cooked properly in the right temperature. Anyway, what I'm saying is a lot of people go to the wet markets in China and they don't get sick right away. It depends on their immune system. And then other people go and they get sick after some time, or they get sick right away because of their immune system is not able to deal with the virus or the bacteria. We're surrounded by all kinds of viruses and bacterias and toxic things. And if we have a strong immune system, we can more or less resist it. Even if we get infected, we can fight it and overcome it. But if you have a weak immune system, then you get sick and you can't get better, and you might die. So here we see misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. So if we think that something is separate from Krishna, then we're going to be in illusion always. And so Prabhupada says, therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of my energy, Krishna says, is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless or that the Supreme Lord is formless is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.12, it is said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord, had all existed before they were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future, also even after the annihilation of the present body and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and the living beings are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light and darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. Okay, so basically, your homework is to read Chapter 9, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 34, and it's a long purport. Well, not that long, but about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. And now, use what you learned from this verse and purport to explain how you should react to any tragedy. You can start with the corona pandemic, or it could be a hurricane, or it could be a tsunami, or it could be a flood, or it could be war, or it could be anything. How should you react to it? So there's material reaction and spiritual reaction. Now, if you only have material education, then your reaction would be in terms of finding a vaccine or an antidote or finding some protective measure like distancing, or sequestering in the house and staying away from human contact, or this or that. Or you could say, well, if I can increase my vitamin C intake, then I would be able to protect myself better. Or if I take a walk today and breathe deeply, or this or that. So how you read this and then explain to me how you should react. Most people have only a material conception of life, so they only find these material, strategies. Like, you have this Dr. Oz. He's on the radio and the television every day, and he's giving advice to people about how to react to the coronavirus, And then you have this other doctor, Fauci, and he's also telling people how to react. And you have these other doctors also. They're all talking, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. How should a devotee react to something like the coronavirus, or to any tragedy, or world, any misery? So that's your homework. And you're going to have to think about this. You have to read this verse and think about it, and then compare it to what everybody else is thinking and explaining and so forth, and how a devotee should think about this. Okay, so that's your homework. And if you have any questions, you can ask them now. Daniel is at the computer. He can't hear you, but if you write out a question, he can see it right away and let me know. We're going to study now for the next couple of weeks these 4 nutshell verses because they're extremely important. The whole Bhagavatam is expanded from them. So are there any questions? Is anybody listening? Okay. Well, Hari Bol to everyone listening. It's okay. If there isn't, then they can just do their homework. Okay, no questions, no answers. Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Do your homework, and we'll continue tomorrow. There was 2 homeworks, right? Explain the difference between bacteria and a virus, or see if they're the same thing or if they're different. And then, secondly, read Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 34, and explain how a devotee should see misery and suffering. Should he or she see it in a material way, because if you have modern education, you'll learn to see everything in a material way, in terms of this virus, that virus, this strategy, that strategy, vitamin B or vitamin D and vitamin C and this and that, or wear a mask, cover yourself with a hazmat suit, even when you sleep at night, to protect yourself from the virus. Don't talk to anyone, don't touch your face, don't touch any surfaces, stay at home, dig a hole and get into the hole and don't let anyone know where you are. Whatever your strategy is, I don't know. Or there's another way of looking at this from a spiritual point of view. Okay, thank you very much. Have fun. And we'll continue tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Krishna Krishna